If they don't get it done, they're gonna have to do it on their own time. Like, I'm not going to change and alter our course because they took advantage of a sub day, which has been the case in the past with some of my classes. I think it might be cleaner in here than I left it yesterday, so that's a plus. Good morning. Welcome back to the Caffeinated Classroom. If this is your first time here, my name is Marie and I am a high school English teacher in San Diego, California. And this is one of my daily vlogs where I just kind of take you along my teaching day with my lesson plans and just let you see kind of some of my thought process and behind the scenes of being a high school English teacher. So today is Wednesday, which at my school is a late start day and we have professional time in the morning. So normally I would be already in a meeting right now, but I am going to run inside and meet a team from my school of teachers and administrators. We are going to be going to a different site today to do a special training that I'm excited to tell you all about because it's something really cool that my school is taking on, this big project. And I am so excited to be seated at the table for this. Let me just tell you. The other thing that I'm interested in checking in with you guys later on, pretend that that was correct syntax, is my sub plans. I had to request a sub. All of the subs that I know were already taken because it's flu season and so people are out and the good subs get snapped up. And so I have a rando sub and I don't know how that's going to go. My sub plans were pretty simple. My students know exactly what they need to get done and they know that it is their responsibility to get it done. So we will check in later this afternoon when I get back to campus and see how that went. But I gotta run inside, so I'll check in with you. Good afternoon. Essentially, it was pretty cool. There's a lot of conversation going on right now in our state of California, and then that is trickling down to counties and to districts and to school sites about more inclusion, like basically a fully inclusive model. And so a lot of the morning today was just talking about what really is special ed and why is it called special, and like basically like the words that we use in relation to our certain populations of students, and what does like campus culture look like in including all students into a general ed setting. What does a least restrictive environment look like? What can it look like, right? Like what does it actually look like? And then what is the potential that it could look like in general on our campus, in our society. A lot of like really cool philosophical discussions and just finding out a lot of information and things that like I knew and that were like percolating in the back of my mind, but to like see these sorts of things, just like how to support all of our students and how to make sure that we are not in trying to make accommodations for a student with special needs or a student who needs certain accommodations for their like learning plan or whatever it is, that we are not then undercutting their potential, right? And not making students complacent, but actually giving them actual attainable goals that are suited to the individual. And it's a lot of things that like I hear myself saying this and then I'm like, yeah, when are we gonna do that? If I have 40 students in a class, how am I going to make every single student? Because I don't think that necessarily the accommodations that we make for our special ed populations have to only be for special ed populations. A lot of these like expectations and behavior accommodations totally translate to our entire population of students across the board, making goals that are attainable for our students, but also that's something that they have to reach for. I'm just kind of rambling right now, sorry. But it was just a cool like way to think about how to create a positive culture around a fully inclusive or a least restrictive environment within a classroom and then on a school campus. We are busy, busy people. We have a lot of things, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things that are on our shoulders, and it can be really, really hard to see outside of your own box, right? If that box is the walls of your classroom, it's really hard to see outside of what you do every day because it is a rat race to get to June and make sure that as many students as possible are succeeding and learning. But just talking about breaking down some of those barriers and finding ways, we were talking as like a site team about finding ways to like support each other so that more adults on campus are going to then feel like they can breathe and feel like they can start to implement some strategies in their classroom to create a less or a least restrictive environment for all students. That was a lot of information, but it was a cool day. I wanted to show you guys. I'm really happy with the evidence of what went on in here today. I prepared my students yesterday for me being gone. I said, listen, I'm going to be gone. here's what you're responsible for. If you don't get this done, you're going to have to do it in your own time. And my students know me well enough now that they know that if they don't get it done, they're gonna have to do it on their own time. Like, I'm not going to change and alter our course because they took advantage of a sub day, which has been the case in the past with some of my classes. I think because I didn't really fully create the culture of we are all responsible for our own learning, and that's something that I've really worked hard this year to instill in my students and to make that part of our just like atmosphere in this room. You are responsible, you get to decide if you engage or disengage. So I'll show you guys what I put up on the board for my students to see, and then I'll show you my sub plans and the evidence that it looks like the work all got done. And it's actually like, I think it might be cleaner in here than I left it yesterday, so that's a plus. Right? So here, let's take a look. So my first period is my sophomores. They knew that they were going to have a reading quiz today on their Lit Circle books and that they were going to have a book club meeting this time. Last one was about setting. So if you missed that, I did a video on how I do these book clubs yesterday's vlog, so I'll link that up in the iCard. But today was talking about character, and I really tried to reinforce to them, I was modeling what does it look like to have a discussion and work together versus divvy up the work and I'll do it individually. That is not what I want to see. I want to see them working together. So we talked a lot about that, and so I just kind of like wanted to reinforce with the reminder, work together. And then my freshmen, my second and third period of the day, we've just started Of Mice and Men. And so in Of Mice and Men, the first like 2 paragraphs are this really vivid and rich description of the setting. So they had a little activity, they were doing a setting map, and they were marking on the text like where the different details are that they were including on their map, and just some reminders about a chapter 1 quiz tomorrow, chapter 2 quiz on Friday, where to turn in their map, blah, 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 blah. As I look here, let's travel to the inbox and let's see what the inbox looks like. Well, I see quite a bit of work in that inbox. This is the work that I need to grade from last week, and this is that I forgot to take out, and this looks like some setting maps. So I'm excited actually to take a look at those. So yeah, like I said, it looks like they did great. And then there's a stack of quizzes on my table over here from my sophomores doing their reading quizzes on their Lit Circle books from Lord of the Flies, from that unit. Yeah, I'm gonna go through and grade these actually in just a moment so that I can give these right back to my students tomorrow. It just, my sub, like I left my plans just on a piece of paper, and it essentially says exactly what it says on the board. The board obviously was for the students, and then on the paper, it's just kind of bullet points that explains like how my classroom works, but it's pretty minimal. I don't like to do really extensive sub plans because then I imagine being a substitute and coming into a classroom and having extensive sub plans and like, what if I don't do, I don't know. I just want to set somebody up for success, right? So I try to be really careful about that stuff. So since these quizzes, these reading quizzes are only 5 questions long, and I have 3 different ones, so it's not going to feel like I'm doing like a bajillion of these and it's only this one class set. I'm gonna grade these really, really fast, and then I think I'm probably gonna take off. I might put them in the computer. We'll see what kind of time I have. I'll check in. Oh, and fun fact, we have this really cool little thing that we're doing as a staff, where we have, because we're the Broncos here at my school, that's our mascot, and so we do, among the staff, some of us signed up to do a secret Bronco, and so I have like a secret pal that brings me, or leaves in like my mailbox little treats. I got 2 bags of peanut M&Ms. I very swiftly opened up a bag because there's one surefire way to get to my heart quickly. Peanut M&Ms. Okay. So it took me like, oh my gosh, under 10 minutes. I just finished grading all 3 different quizzes. The one for The Giver, one for One of Us is Lying, and one for The Hunger Games. And I will say my One of Us is Lying quiz has got some interesting, there's some faults in it because there's like one question that everybody got wrong, even though like I very recently read that book. So like I know that I'm right, but obviously my students are not getting that part, so it's something that I will probably just talk to them about and then throw out the question or just give them the point. But I wanted to just stay really fast before I have to run. That I use reading quizzes for a couple of reasons, and over my career I've gone back and forth on how to use reading quizzes, why I use reading quizzes, whether I do or do not use reading quizzes, and I do. because I'm working with teenagers who are often going to be reluctant to read. It is kind of rare that you have a student who just is intrinsically motivated and is always going to be reading all of the things. I'm in a general ed classroom that is not honors, not AP. So I just have to be sensitive to the motivations and to the daily life of most of my students. And the daily life of most of my students is not going to include being excited about, like, it is not going to include being like super excited and pumped about assigned reading. You know what I mean? So I use these quizzes in their current iteration for any text that we're working on, anytime I'm going to give like a reading quiz, to number one, check comprehension. So as I'm looking at this, and most of my, in fact, all but one, I think, got number 3 on my One of Us is Lying quiz incorrect. And so that tells me, and they mostly got one of my wrong answers is what they circled. So I think that they're misinterpreting. I think my answers in the multiple choice were misleading, and therefore their interpretation was a little bit skewed. So I just need to go back. I need to talk to those book club groups. There are only 2 groups reading that book. I just need to talk to them through that and make sure that they understand it's the questions relating to a relationship between 2 characters. And the other reason that I use these quizzes beyond comprehension is to see if students are reading, like to help them have some sort of a motivator and a reason to stay on track. Some students will sit down with a book and finish it in a weekend or finish it in an afternoon or, you know, whatever kind of time they have. And some students will have a really hard time figuring out how to fit reading where you can't do a bunch of different things while you're reading and comprehend what's going on. You have to have a certain amount of quiet or a certain amount of focus and be able to really hone in on what you're doing. It's a difficult activity for a lot of our students, the way that they're used to having so many different inputs at once. Can't have that and understand what you're reading. So I want to ask them very plainly, like my students who 4 got 0 out of 5. I did a couple of things. I've covered up the name so that you can't see, but I've written conference. Meaning when they get this back, there will be a score, like their straight up score that they earned will go into the computer, and they will have the opportunity, and I will actually really bug them about it, to come and talk to me. Talk to me about what you read. Show me on a one-to-one conversation, maybe just this quiz through them, right? Maybe they just didn't understand the questions, or just the way that I worded it didn't make sense to them and it didn't quite like speak to their understanding of their reading. And so talk to me about what you read, and we'll talk through each of the questions and they'll tell me what they think, and it'll be very obvious to me whether or not a student read, and then I think I'll take it from there. So I haven't ever really approached a reading quiz like this before because there are only 5 questions. Like, it's such throwaway points, but those throwaway points add up in a student's grade, and I don't want to miss this opportunity to help them become more efficient or like better readers. So I'm going to try that out tomorrow, do a little reading quiz conference with my students who need it. So if they got like a 3 or below on the quiz, I'm going to talk to them one-on-one and see if we can figure out where their understanding gap was, or if they just didn't read and therefore they just need to like take on that responsibility, and we'll try and figure out how to help them get their reading done, and make sure that the responsibility is on my students, because it is completely their responsibility to get their reading done, but I will bend over backwards to make sure they have the resources to do so. Yeah, I just want to like kind of tell you guys my thought process through that, because this is something that I'm evolving with. Even in my 12th year of teaching, I'm evolving, and I'm trying to help all students become more successful, especially in the area of reading, because if they are good and they're efficient readers, the reading or the writing, the listening, and the speaking is going to follow suit. So I know that from my own experience, and I just know that in my gut. So there you have it. I'm actually going to sign off with you guys now because I need to grade these. I need to go home and get my kiddos and keep going with my day. But thank you so much for watching. I will be coming back at you tomorrow with a vlog all about what's going on in my classroom, and we'll talk about some different stuff, and I'll probably have some more insight on this whole inclusion model and just kind of like how I see it really working in my classroom, because like I said, I feel like I have a seat at the table, and that's something that's like really cool and I'm excited about and that I want to keep moving forward with. So until we meet again, take a moment and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Click the little bell so that you get an alert that you are getting these daily vlogs in your feed, and I will see you guys next time.